My aunt used to say she rescued me. What a joke. After Dad died, I moved into her mansion in Connecticut. 12 bedrooms, 3 staircases, 1 marble statue that nobody remembered ordering. I was 11 years old and smaller than her walk-in closet. She told her friends at those fancy dinner parties. We took her in, out of pure charity. I did the dishes, drove her to doctor appointments, learned exactly how she liked her wine chilled and her envelopes sealed, with a butter knife, never torn. She gave me a room, not a real place at the table, an allowance, not inheritance. You don't complain when you live on someone else's dime, dear. So I smiled and stayed small, just like she wanted. I remember the first night I came to live with her. Dad's funeral had been 2 days before. I was still wearing my black dress, the only fancy thing I owned. Mom had died when I was 8, so it was just me and Dad until the accident. Dad used to make pancakes every Sunday morning, Mickey Mouse-shaped ones. He'd put extra chocolate chips in the ears because he said Disney deserved the best parts. Eliza, he'd say, flipping them high in the air, "You're going to do amazing things someday. You've got your mother's heart and your old man's stubborn streak. That's a dangerous combination." I believed him. Back then, I believed everything would work out. The night I moved in with Aunt Patricia, she sat me down in her pristine living room. Everything was white or cream or beige, like color might contaminate something. "Now, Eliza," she said, "there are rules in this house. You're not a guest anymore. You're family, and family contributes." She handed me a list, written in her perfect handwriting. "Wake up at 6 a.m., make coffee, polish the silver, dust the piano, walk the dog, do homework quietly." "I'm not running a hotel," she said. "Your father may have spoiled you, but I believe in discipline. My father had never spoiled me. He'd loved me. There's a difference." But I was 11. What did I know about differences? For 14 years, I was the girl in the background, the one handing out hors d'oeuvres at parties, not receiving compliments, the one who knew where every light switch was but never got to turn them on for my own friends. She introduced me as my niece when it was convenient, when she needed sympathy points with her book club ladies. Other times, just Eliza. She helps with things. I helped with everything. Birthday galas, investment luncheons, private fundraisers where rich people pretended to care about poor people. But never once did she say this is her home too, because it wasn't. Not really. I was 25 and still asking permission to use the good towels. The cruelty started small. Little comments. Tiny cuts that added up to something bigger. When I was 13, I got invited to Sarah Martinez's birthday party. First invitation I'd received since moving in. I was so excited I could barely sleep. "Aunt Patricia." I said at breakfast, "Can I go to Sarah's party on Saturday?" She looked up from her newspaper. The financial section. Always the financial section. "Who's Sarah?" "A girl from school. She's really nice. Her family owns the flower shop downtown." The flower shop. She said it like Sarah's family sold drugs or something worse. "It's just a birthday party, pizza and movies." "And what exactly are you planning to give her as a gift?" I hadn't thought about that. Maybe I could make her something I'm good at drawing." Patricia laughed, not a nice laugh, a sharp one. "You can't show up to a party with a homemade gift, Eliza. People will think we're poor. But I don't have money for a real gift." "Exactly my point. You're not ready for parties yet." I didn't go to Sarah's party. I watched from my bedroom window as other kids from school walked to her house with wrapped presents and smiles. Sarah never invited me to anything again. When I was 16, I found a box in my closet, hidden behind old shoes and winter coats. Inside were letters, dozens of them, all addressed to me, from my father's friends, from my mother's sister in California, from my old neighbors who wanted to know how I was doing. Some were birthday cards, Christmas cards, graduation cards from elementary school, all unopened. I confronted her at dinner. "Why didn't you give me these?" She barely looked up from her salmon. "Give you what?" "The letters, from Dad's friends, from Aunt Marie." "Oh, those." I read them first to make sure they were appropriate. Most were just people feeling sorry for you. I didn't think you needed more sadness in your life. They weren't yours to read. Everything that comes into this house is mine to read. You're a minor, I'm your guardian. That's how it works. I opened one of the letters that night. From my dad's best friend, Uncle Jim. "Dear Eliza." It said, "I know you must be scared and sad, but I want you to know that your dad talked about you all the time. He was so proud of you. And your mom, she would have been proud too. If you ever need anything at all, you call me. I promise I'll always be here for you." At the bottom was his phone number. I tried calling it the next day. The number was disconnected. The letter was 3 years old. The staff whispered about me. I knew they did. Maria, the housekeeper, would give me these looks, like she knew something I didn't. Like she felt sorry for me. "Miss Eliza," she'd say, "you're too good for this." But what choice did I have? I had a degree in art history that was about as useful as a chocolate teapot. No real work experience besides being my aunt's personal assistant/doormat. Maria had been with the family for 20 years. She knew things. She'd worked for my grandparents before they died. She'd been there when my father was young. "Your papa," she told me one afternoon while we folded laundry. "He was different from her. Kind. He used to sneak me extra money at Christmas, said it was from Santa. What was he like when he was young? Full of life. Always laughing. He'd bring home stray cats and try to hide them from his parents. Your aunt, she was jealous of him. Always. Jealous, why? Because everyone loved him. And she had to work for attention. Your papa, he just had to smile." I thought about that conversation for weeks. Dad had never mentioned being close to his sister. He'd only talked about her when he had to. "Patricia's always been complicated," he'd say. "But she's family, and family matters." I wonder what he'd think about his definition of family now. Ooh, when I was 18, I applied to colleges. Art schools mostly. I had a portfolio full of paintings and drawings I'd been working on for years. I got accepted to 3 schools. One in New York, one in Boston, one in California. I was so excited I ran downstairs to tell Patricia. "I got in," I shouted, waving the acceptance letters. "I got into art school." She was hosting her book club that afternoon. 12 women in expensive clothes drinking expensive wine and pretending to care about literature. "Ladies," she said loudly, "my niece thinks she's going to art school." They all laughed, like I'd told a joke. "Art school," said Mrs. Henderson from down the street. "How creative." "I think it's wonderful," said Mrs. Chen, but she didn't sound like she meant it. "It's not practical," Patricia said. "Art isn't a career, it's a hobby. But I'm good at it. My teachers say I have talent." Teachers say lots of things. They're paid to be encouraging. That night, she called me into her office. "Eliza, we need to talk about your future." "I know what I want to do." "No, you don't. You're 18. You think you know, but you don't. Art school is expensive, impractical. You'll graduate with debt and no job prospects." "I'll figure it out." "You'll figure it out with what money? You have no savings, no family money, no connections in the art world. I'll get scholarships, financial aid. And what about living expenses? Book supplies, art supplies are expensive, Eliza. Do you have any idea how much good paint costs?" I didn't. I'd been using cheap supplies from the drugstore. I thought, maybe you could help, just until I get established. She laughed. That same sharp laugh from when I was 13. Help with what I already provide everything you need. Food, shelter, clothes. I'm not financing your pipe dreams. It's not a pipe dream, it's my future. Your future is practical, stable. I've arranged for you to attend community college. You can study business or accounting, something useful. I don't want to study business. What you want isn't the point. What you need is the point. And you need to be realistic about your situation. I went to community college, studied business, hated every minute of it, but I kept painting. In secret, late at night, in my room, with cheap supplies and stolen moments. I was trapped in designer clothes and a designer life that wasn't mine. The clothes were another form of control. Patricia bought everything I wore, every dress, every pair of shoes, every piece of jewelry. You represent this family, she'd say. You need to look appropriate. Appropriate meant boring, conservative, invisible. I wanted to wear colors, bright blues and greens and reds. I wanted clothes that fit my personality, not her image of what I should be. But I didn't have money for clothes. I didn't have money for anything. My allowance was $50 a week. In Connecticut, in 2024, $50 didn't buy much. That's more than some people make in a day, she'd say when I asked for more. But I can't even go to the movies with friends. Then don't go to the movies, read a book. There are plenty of books in this house. There were, hundreds of them. But they were all her books, her taste, her interests. I wanted to read young adult novels, romance, fantasy, anything that would let me escape. But those books weren't appropriate for the house library, so I read them on my phone, using the Wi-Fi I wasn't supposed to use for entertainment. Even my escapism had to be secret. 2 months before my 25th birthday, the roof started leaking. Right over the dining room where she held her precious bridge games. The staff blamed the old pipework. She blamed me. Like I controlled the weather or something. Eliza, go check the attic for water damage. And be careful. Some of your father's old things are up there. My father's things. She'd never mentioned my father's things before. The attic was dusty and cramped. Boxes everywhere. Most labeled in her neat handwriting. Christmas decorations. Tax documents. Richard's clothes. Richard. My dad. She never called him by name anymore. Just, your father. Like he was some distant relative. I opened one of the boxes marked Richard's clothes. Inside were his sweaters, his t-shirts, his jeans. They still smelled like him. After all these years, I pulled out a blue sweater I remembered him wearing on cold Sunday mornings. When he'd make those Mickey Mouse pancakes and tell me stories about his childhood. Your Aunt Patricia and I grew up in this house, he'd say. But it felt different then. Warmer. Your grandparents knew how to make a house feel like home. I'd never understood what he meant. Now I did. That's when I found it. A wooden box. Locked. Hidden behind a stack of old magazines. Labeled in handwriting I recognized but hadn't seen in years. Dad's handwriting. For Eliza when she's old enough to ask. Ask what I was 25. What had I not been old enough to ask? The lock was old, rusted. I found a screwdriver and pried it open. Inside a letter, a legal folder, and a bank ledger. The letter was dated 2 weeks before his death. Before the car accident that changed everything. Dearest Eliza, if you're reading this, I'm gone. But I never left you empty-handed. Your aunt agreed to care for you to hold your inheritance in trust until you turned 25. This money was always yours. It was never charity. It was your birthright. I've included documentation of everything. The trust fund, the investment accounts, the properties in your name. Patricia knows about all of this. She's been managing it since I died. She's supposed to tell you about it when you turn 18, but knowing my sister, she'll probably wait until you're older. More mature. More ready to handle this kind of responsibility. But the truth is, sweetheart, you've always been mature. You've always been ready. You've always been enough. Your mother and I saved everything we could for you. We wanted you to have choices, freedom, the ability to follow your dreams without worrying about money. And if Patricia never told you about this, well, I hope you understand what that means. I love you more than all the stars in the sky. Take care of yourself. Be brave. Be kind. Be everything I know you already are. Love always, Dad. P.S. The Mickey Mouse pancake recipe is in the kitchen drawer. Second one from the sink. Don't let Patricia throw it away. My hands were shaking as I opened the legal folder. Trust documents, investment statements, bank accounts, all in my name. The trust $8.4 million, invested, growing, compounding for 14 years. $8.4 million. I'd been living like a charity case while sitting on a fortune. The bank ledger showed everything, every deposit, every withdrawal, every time she'd managed my money. The renovations to her bathroom, $50,000. The trip to Europe with her book club, $30,000. The new Mercedes, $60,000. The private chef for her dinner parties, $20,000 a year. The designer clothes in her closet, hundreds of thousands of dollars. All my money, all my inheritance, all my future. She'd been using it, living off it. The house renovations, the trips to Europe, the designer clothes she wore to tell people how generous she was. My money, my inheritance, my life, she'd stolen 14 years from me. But the worst part wasn't the money. It was the lies. Every time she'd made me feel grateful. Every time she'd reminded me that I was living on charity. Every time she'd made me small and scared and dependent. I thought about all the times I'd asked for things. Small things. A new backpack for school. Money for a class trip. A dress for prom. Do you think money grows on trees? She'd say. I already do so much for you. Meanwhile, she was spending my money on wine tastings and spa weekends. I thought about college. How she'd convinced me I couldn't afford art school. How she'd made me believe I had no options. I could have gone anywhere, done anything, become anyone. Instead, I'd spent 7 years in community college and dead-end jobs because I thought I had no choice. 7 years of believing I was nothing. 7 years of being grateful for scraps from my own table. I didn't confront her right away. I'm not stupid. I made copies of everything, called the bank, hired a lawyer. The lawyer, a sharp woman in her 50s, looked at the documents and whistled. This is fraud, she said. Clear as day. She was supposed to tell you about this trust when you turned 18. Instead, she's been using it like her personal piggy bank. What can I do? You can destroy her. Legally speaking, criminal charges, civil suits, she'll lose everything. The thought was tempting, so tempting. But I said, but she's family, and family cases get messy. The media attention alone might be more than you want to deal with. What would you do? I'd take back what's mine, and I'd make sure she never had the chance to do this to anyone else. I spent the next 3 days planning, not just the legal stuff, the emotional stuff. I thought about confronting her publicly, at one of her fancy parties, in front of all her friends. I thought about calling the police, watching her get arrested in handcuffs. I thought about posting the whole story on social media, letting the internet do what it does best. But in the end, I chose something quieter, more personal. I wanted to see her face when she realized I knew. I wanted to watch her try to explain 14 years of lies. I wanted her to understand that the girl she'd kept small had grown up. 3 days before my 25th birthday, I walked into her drawing room. She was on the phone laughing about some brunch drama with her society friends. Oh, you should have seen Caroline's face when she found out about the yacht club membership fees. She looked up and saw me standing there with an envelope in my hand. Hold on, darling, she said into the phone. You look nice today, Eliza. Going somewhere special. I was wearing a dress I'd bought with my own money. The first thing I'd purchased without asking her permission. It was red. Bright red. The kind of color she'd never let me wear. I handed her the envelope. She opened it, started reading. Her face went from confused to pale to gray. You found it? I nodded. 14 years, I said. You never told me. You had a roof over your head. You had food. I managed it properly. You used it. You lived off it. You treated me like I was some burden you were stuck with. She tried to stand up. Her legs were shaking. I gave you everything. A good education, a home, culture, refinement. You gave me scraps from my own table. You're being dramatic. Am I $8.4 million, Aunt Patricia? That's not dramatic. That's theft. She dropped the phone. Her friend's voice was still chattering away on the other end. I can explain. Explain how you've been playing dress-up with my money. How you've been the charity case all along. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish. I raised you. I sacrificed for you. You sacrificed nothing. You lived in luxury while making me feel grateful for crumbs. Where would you have gone? What would you have done? You were 11 years old. I would have figured it out. With my own money, my father's money, the money you've been stealing. I never stole anything. I managed your inheritance responsibly. Responsibly, you bought a Mercedes with my college fund. You went to college. Community college, because you convinced me I couldn't afford anything else. You couldn't. Not yet. You weren't ready. I wasn't ready, or you weren't ready to give up your cash cow. She sat down heavily in her chair. You don't understand. This house, this lifestyle, it's expensive. I had to maintain appearances for both of us. For both of us, I've been wearing the same 3 dresses for 5 years. You had everything you needed. I had nothing, and you made sure I knew it. I turned to leave. Where are you going? To get what's mine. Eliza, wait. We can work this out. We can make arrangements. Arrangements, like the arrangement where you lied to me for 14 years. I was protecting you. From what? From having choices. From being independent. From being happy. From making mistakes. From being taken advantage of. You were taking advantage of me. I gave you a family. You gave me a prison. She started crying, big dramatic tears. I'm sorry. I know I made mistakes. But I love you. You're like a daughter to me. Daughters don't ask permission to use the good towels. That can change. Everything can change. You're right. Everything can change. Starting now. I didn't take the house. I didn't take her art collection or her precious pearls or her social connections. I took back my name and my money. The bank transfer happened on my 25th birthday. $8.4 million plus interest. $9.2 million, actually. I bought a penthouse in Boston, started a design studio, hired Maria as my assistant. She'd quit working for my aunt the day after I left. I always knew. Maria told me over coffee in my new kitchen. Your aunt, she was so nervous every time the bank called, so angry when the statements came. I thought maybe she had gambling debts or something. She had something worse, a conscience she was trying to ignore. Your father, he would be so proud of you now. I hope so. He always said you were going to do amazing things, even when you were little. He could see it in you. I thought about those Sunday morning pancakes. About Dad flipping them high in the air and catching them perfectly. You've got your mother's heart and your old man's stubborn streak, he'd said. That's a dangerous combination. He was right. It was dangerous. Dangerous for people who tried to keep me small. The story spread through her social circle like wildfire. Rich people love gossip more than they love money. And this was both. She tried to control the narrative. Told people she'd gifted me a seed fund to start my business. That she was so proud of my entrepreneurial spirit. I didn't correct her, at first, but when New England Business Magazine wanted to do a feature on young entrepreneurs making waves, I agreed to the interview. The journalist was young hungry. She asked good questions. So your aunt helped you get started. My aunt helped herself to my inheritance for 14 years. I helped myself to getting it back. That's quite an accusation. It's quite a fact. I have the documents. What was it like discovering this? Like finding out you've been living in your own house as a guest. Like realizing the charity case was the person taking charity. Did you consider legal action? I considered a lot of things. But sometimes the best revenge is living well. And you're living well now. I'm living honestly, for the first time in 14 years. The article came out 3 weeks later. The headline, From Charity Case to Millionaire, How One Woman Discovered Her Hidden Fortune. My aunt's phone started ringing. Her friends had questions. The country club had questions. The IRS had questions. Shh! I ran into her 6 months later at a gallery opening in Hartford. She looked smaller somehow, older. Her hair wasn't as perfect. Her dress wasn't as expensive. She was standing alone by a painting holding a glass of cheap wine. "Hello, Aunt Patricia." She turned. For a second I thought she might cry. "Eliza, you look successful." "I am, thanks to Dad." "Your father would be proud." "My father would be furious. At you." She nodded slowly. "I know." We stood there in silence. The gallery was full of people, but it felt like we were alone. "I'm sorry," she said finally. "I know that doesn't fix anything, but I'm sorry." "Why did you do it?" "Because I was scared." Richard left me some money too, but not much. And this house, this lifestyle, it's expensive. I thought I'd borrow from your trust, just temporarily. Pay it back before you turn 25. But you didn't. But I didn't. And then years passed and it became easier to pretend you didn't know. That you were happy being taken care of. I was never happy. I was surviving. She finished her wine. I sold the house last month. Good for you. I'm moving to a condo in West Hartford, smaller, more appropriate. What about all your things, your art collection? Sold most of it. Turns out when you can't afford to keep up appearances don't matter much. I didn't ask if she needed help. We both knew she didn't deserve it. The staff all quit, she said. After Maria left, the others followed. Word gets around. Maria's good people. She is. She always liked you more than me. She saw through you. Everyone did eventually. That was a year ago. My business is thriving. I've got clients in New York, Boston, even some in LA. Rich people who want their houses to look like something out of a magazine. Turns out I inherited more than money from my parents. I inherited their eye for beauty, their sense of style, their ability to make spaces feel like home. I'm good at it. Really good. Growing up in a mansion teaches you things about space and light, and how to make people feel important. But more than that, growing up feeling invisible teaches you how to see what other people need. Maria still works for me. She's more than an assistant now. She's family in a way my aunt never was. You know what I love most about this place? She said one morning, looking around my studio. What? It feels like you. Every corner, every color, every choice, it's all you. That's the point. Your papa would love it. He always said the best homes tell stories. What story does this place tell? That the girl who was kept small learned how to take up space. I got a Christmas card from Patricia last December. A generic one from CVS. She signed it, Love Aunt Pat. Inside, she'd written a note. I think about you every day. I hope you're happy. I hope you can forgive me someday. I know I don't deserve it, but I hope anyway. I kept the card. I don't know why. Maybe because it was the first honest thing she'd said to me in 25 years. Maybe because forgiveness isn't about what people deserve. Maybe because I'm finally free enough to consider it. But sometimes late at night in my penthouse, I wonder what would have happened if I'd never found that box. If I'd stayed small and grateful and invisible. If I'd never learned that sometimes the girl in the background was actually the heir on pause. I have her phone number. I could call her. Ask how she's doing in her little condo. Maybe we could grab coffee. Maybe we could try to be family again. The other day I was going through some old photos. Pictures of me and Dad. Pictures of family gatherings from when I was little. In one photo, Patricia is holding me. I'm maybe 3 years old. We're both laughing about something. She looks happy. Genuinely happy. I wonder when that changed. When love became control. When care became theft. I wonder if she remembers that version of herself. I wonder if she misses it. Ew, there's a voicemail on my phone. From 2 weeks ago. Her voice sounds different. Older. Tired. Eliza, it's me. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted you to know that I'm proud of you. I saw the article in Design today. About your studio. About your success. You're doing exactly what your father always said you'd do. Amazing things. She pauses. I can hear her breathing. I know I don't have the right to be proud. I know I gave up that right a long time ago. But I am. I'm proud of you. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything. Another pause. I don't expect you to call me back. I just wanted you to know. I've listened to that voicemail maybe 50 times. I haven't called her back, but I haven't deleted it either. The choice is mine now. It always was. I just didn't know it yet. Maybe that's what growing up really means. Not getting older. Not getting wiser. Just realizing that the power was always in your hands, even when someone else was holding the keys, even when you were told you were nothing, even when you believed it. The power was always yours. You just had to be brave enough to take it back. Maria is making coffee in the kitchen. She's humming something in Spanish, something that sounds like hope. My phone is on the counter. Patricia's number is still in my contacts. I could call her, or I could delete the number, or I could just leave it there. A possibility. A choice I'm not ready to make. Some stories don't end with resolution. Some stories end with options. And sometimes that's enough.